Becoming a master of sealing jutsu was easier said than done, Boruto thought. Days became weeks in a blur. Boruto rose with the sun, performing his morning ritualistic practice of the gentle fist on the inlet behind his guest house. He then created several clones to help the villagers with their day-to-day tasks, and then joined the rest of the children in the academy for their daily lessons. The Uzumaki was a strict but good teacher. Each day she began with a lecture on the history of the Uzumaki clan, or the Land of Whirlpools, beginning with the time before hidden villages and ending in present day. After that, there would be a brief review of the material covered in the previous lesson. Anyone who hadn't mastered the previous seals were given extra practice to do outside of class. Following the review, the Uzumaki worked them to the bone to master their current seal, each of which was more tedious and intricate than the last. After 6 long, grueling hours, the students were released. Their fingers and hands were sore, and more often than not, they were covered in black ink, but they were happy to be progressing in their art. Boruto then returned to his home, sparred briefly with Kohaku, though none of their mock battles were as intense as their first, and then practiced forming, dispelling, and reforming Rasengan until he fell asleep. That was until Boruto found himself in his current lesson. The students were far enough along in their studies that the class had begun to split into two. The younger, weaker students practiced and mastered their basics, while the older, stronger students who had more chakra and self-control pressed onwards, learning more intricate and powerful seals. The Uzumaki loomed over Boruto and 4 other older students like a specter. This is one of the most useful seals in an Uzumaki's arsenal. She began lecturing imperiously, with a deadly seriousness. Boruto and his comrades listened raptly, unblinking. After the Uzumaki had actually spanked that 16-year-old boy for daydreaming, none of them dared lose focus. It was one of the seals we were feared and respected for, the chakra draining seal. When our already sizable chakra reserves were depleted, an Uzumaki could take a prisoner of war and siphon their chakra from them, restoring themselves. Watch carefully, the Uzumaki instructed, before weaving a long series of hand seals. At the end, she slammed her fist on the ground, startling Boruto and his classmates. A pattern of inky black characters crawled out from beneath the Uzumaki's palm, forming a large circle with a swirling pattern that coalesced into a singular point in the center. It was almost reminiscent of the summoning jutsu that Boruto had seen his dad perform on rare occasions. Stepping out of the circle, the Uzumaki formed several seals and created a shadow clone. Wordlessly, the clone entered the circle. The Uzumaki formed a single seal, Snake, activating the seal. The entire seal glowed an eerie blue color, and the clone became cloaked in its own chakra as it was slowly extracted and absorbed into the seal. After a few moments, the clone despawned in a plume of white smoke. The Uzumaki ended the seal, the characters fading to nothing. The Uzumaki returned her focus to her students with a deadly seriousness. You must use the utmost caution when using this seal. If you drain a person's chakra too much, you risk killing them, she said. Now summon a clone and practice. Under no circumstances are you to perform this seal on a living person without my supervision. Boruto and his classmates nodded several times to assure their teacher that they would adhere to her rules. They each summoned a single clone, most using water. Only Boruto could create a shadow clone. Stepping forward, Boruto began to slowly move through the hand seals that the Uzumaki had shown them. Slamming his down theatrically, Boruto expected the same inky black characters to crawl out from beneath his palm. Nothing happened. I think the last series of seals was ox, hare, boar, ram. Not ox, boar, hare, tiger, Boruto's clone commented as he watched the original go about his work. Boruto gave his clone a withering, petulant glare before doing the seals again, this time ending in ram, not tiger. He was rewarded with a swirling pattern of characters that created a seal resembling the Uzumaki clan crest. Both Borutos nodded at their work, something that unnerved the other students. Stepping back, the original formed the snake hand seal, activating the jutsu. The seal glowed blue. Boruto's clone stiffened and then erupted in a plume of white smoke as its chakra was drained. Boruto felt some of his chakra return to him, though he could tell most of it was lost during the jutsu. Boruto looked at his classmates to see if they had also succeeded. One of the older boys had managed it, his water clone now a growing puddle on the classroom floor. The Uzumaki loomed over them, watching and judging their every move. Determined not to draw her ire, Boruto and the other student formed the seal again, summoning another clone to practice on. This time, Boruto focused on the seal. When his shadow clone vanished, he was rewarded with an even larger return of chakra. Boruto recognized the lesson the Uzumaki was trying to teach them. It was their control over the seal that made it dangerous, not the seal itself. The more he tried to leech from his clone, the more chakra was retained. Boruto summoned another clone and began weaving hand seals for his third attempt. The doors of the academy slammed open, admitting a Jonin with scuffed clothes and windswept crimson hair. He wore his headband proudly across his forehead. "Uzumaki, sir, we found it," he reported formally. The Uzumaki waved her hand, dismissing the man, before turning to raise an eyebrow at her students. "Today is your lucky day. You'll get to see firsthand the power the Uzumaki of old wielded," she said. "Follow me." Boruto followed the Uzumaki dutifully. What had the Jonin discovered? Clearly the Uzumaki considered it worthy enough to cancel their lessons early, something she never did. Whatever it was, it had to be pretty important. The Uzumaki led them through the village, weaving through ruins and dilapidated houses until they reached the approximate center of the old hidden eddy. There, a small gathering of workers and what few ninja the village had to spare were gathered around a moderately sized house. Pillars of stone, intricately adorned with the hidden eddy crest, lay in organized pile to one side of the house. Clearly the workers had been intent on clearing the rubble in this particular house, Boruto deduced. Looking around, Boruto could tell that the house had once been the host of heavy fighting. There were rusty kunai and shuriken littering the floor, as well as scorch marks that charred the wood. In several places the stone was dyed crimson. The house had quite literally been razed to the ground. All except one tiny corner of the house, in what appeared to be an old study. On the floor, etched into the stone, was a series of characters that formed an intricate, everly increasing complex seal that spiraled into a singular point in the center that was larger than Boruto's fist. Around the seal, the house was untouched and flawless, clean as the day its previous owner inhabited the house. "This," the Uzumaki explained, "is the residence of the first Uzumaki prior to the destruction of the hidden eddy. The first was a descendant of a long line of Uzumaki clansmen, who were heralded as the greatest geniuses of our family. Before he died, he sealed all knowledge he was tasked with defending during the invasion. It is my belief that these secrets are sealed here." Stepping forward, the Uzumaki kneeled and placed her open palm atop the center of the seal. "Today, we will recover these secrets, and restore our clan to its former glory," she said, before channeling chakra into the seal and turning her hand clockwise. The seal glowed blue as it spread through the characters, slowly activating. The air became heavy with chakra, tinted a light blue color. Boruto leaned forward to see what the Uzumaki was doing more clearly. Next to him, Kohaku did the same. The ground began to rumble and shake, causing a few of the ruined houses to collapse around them. Boruto watched as the formerly blue characters began to turn an eerie red color, spreading and consuming the seal. The rumbling intensified. Is that supposed to happen?" Boruto asked. "I don't think so, kid," Kohaku murmured, casting worried glances at his grandmother. The Uzumaki was hunched over, sweat beading on her forehead. Her brows narrowed in concentration as she continued to pour chakra into the seal. No, Boruto decided. This was not supposed to be happening at all. A wall of solid wind erupted from the seal, nearly knocking Boruto from his feet. The Uzumaki collapsed backwards. Kohaku dutifully caught his grandmother, already assessing the situation. The seal erupted outwards, unraveling and shaking outside the confines of the first house. The ninja and assembled men and women watched in awe as a great bubble of raw, angry red chakra surrounded them, enclosing the house and much of the village square of old hidden eddy. Boruto squeaked as a hand erupted from the floorboards near where he was standing. It grabbed at his ankles. But he had already backpedaled a safe distance away, seeing as its victim had eluded its grasp. The hands tore at the floorboards, hoisting itself up as the rest of the wood gave away. A strange creature stared down Boruto and Kohaku. It was little more than rags, and its body appeared to be composed of a black liquid with a thick consistency. On its head, if you could even call it that, Boruto thought, there were an ordinately decorated porcelain mask of a bird with a long beak. The creature stared at them, almost as if it was confused. Its gaze was drawn to the Uzumaki and the broken seal. "Defend yourselves, you fools," Akane commanded Boruto and her grandson. The creature rounded on them, its beak parted threateningly. Boruto and Kohaku weaved their hand seals in perfect unison. Water release, water bullet jutsu. Spears of water erupted from their lips, hissing through the air towards the masked beast. Boruto saw out of the corner of his eye that the other ninja and the villagers were also fighting masked opponents of their own. The beast with the bird mask squawked, unleashing a gust of wind that reduced their attack to a fine, harmless mist. It continued forward, crashing into both men and sending them tumbling across the floor and falling outside the house. The Uzumaki stood her ground, not weaving even a single hand seal. She held her closed fist to her mouth. The creature drew in a deep, rasping breath. Fire release, great fireball jutsu. The fire fed upon the masked beast's wind, devouring it and empowering itself. The liquid body of the creature boiled and bubbled, popping with loud hisses. The creature didn't even make a sound as it was utterly incinerated in the flames of the Uzukage's jutsu. Boruto and Kohaku recovered, leaping to their feet just in time to see the Uzumaki dispatch the first masked beast. Turning, they faced the others that had appeared. Counting the one that Kohaku's grandmother had just slain, there were 5 in total. 3 burly men with crimson hair from the village fought one creature, who wore a mask of what Boruto could only assume was a mole. Charging forward, he reached into the pouch he carried on the small of his back. Withdrawing a fistful of shuriken, he hurled the throwing stars, smiling as he was rewarded with the solid thunks as metal met creature. One of the villagers took advantage of the opening, swinging a pickaxe at the midsection of the beast. The tool pierced the soft flesh of the monster. The man tried to draw the pickaxe back from another strike, but it held fast. That was the last thing the man ever did. The creature swung its arm down, engorged in 5 times the size of normal and made of solid stone. The man was crushed into a fine, meaty pulp. Boruto felt bile rise and coat his tongue. It was the first time he'd ever seen a person die, and it made his stomach churn. The ease at which the man had been killed was sickening. He was just snuffed out by this monster that had crawled out of the ground. "You bastard!" Boruto roared, weaving hand seals. Water release, exploding water shockwave. A wave of water erupted from Boruto's lips, fueled by anger. Boruto had channeled an impressive amount of chakra into the jutsu. The wave of water slammed to the masked creature with enough force to shatter bone, and Boruto was rewarded with the sound of spongy flesh being ravaged by the impact of his jutsu. Boruto maintained the jutsu even as he weaved more seals. He was determined to see this particular creature destroyed. Lightning release, wave of inspiration. Lightning coursed through the water, crackling through the stunned and battered creature. It squealed in pain, its mask shattering into countless pieces. Boruto terminated both jutsu. The creature did not rise. Panting heavy, Boruto turned to assess the battlefield. The 2 remaining burly men had assigned themselves as Boruto's bodyguards, one wielding a sledgehammer, the other a shovel. The Uzumaki was fighting the bird-masked monster while Kohaku had moved to defend a group of men and women against 2 creatures, one with a fox mask and one with a fish mask. Another creature wearing the mask of a grimacing man with a large yellow painted nose. Boruto's eyes met Kohaku's. Through unspoken agreement, Boruto ran to the group being attacked by the grimacing man. Boruto's 2 bodyguards trailed behind him, their tools raised menacingly. Boruto charged the creature while its back was turned. Learning from the mistake of the last man, he was careful not to touch the spongy black flesh. He struck with a gentle fist, allowing his chakra to make the strike for him. Once, twice, thrice. The creature turned on him, its jaws cracked open with lightning rumbling in its maw. Boruto's eyes widened. One of the Uzumaki men struck the creature in the chin with his shovel, causing the blast to be diverted upwards, safely away from any who would be harmed. The bolt of lightning dissipated against the barrier in the far distance. Wisely choosing to avoid using water jutsu, Boruto weaved a few hand seals. He took in a deep breath, feeling it superheat in his chest. Lightning release, false darkness jutsu. He parted his lips, releasing a spear of lightning that thundered towards the beast, faster than it could react at such close range. The jutsu tore a gaping hole through the creature's chest, sending it flying backwards from the sheer force. The group of Uzumaki clansmen he had just saved cheered. Their victory was short-lived. A bolt of lightning shot through the small crowd, instantly incinerating one woman with rosy red hair, charring her skin black. Boruto whirled on the creature he knew he had just destroyed. It was standing once more, the hole in its chest gone, as if it had never been there. The creature's maw was already splayed open, electricity crackling. Boruto reacted faster than he thought possible. Though he disliked using his wind nature since it reminded him of his good-for-nothing father, it was the only element he could use that was strong against lightning. Wind released, vacuum bullets. Blades of compressed, razor-sharp wind spewed from Boruto's lips, piercing the creature and riddling him with holes. The masked beast released the bolt of lightning. only for it to be shredded and dissipated by the assault of Boruto's jutsu. A stray bullet ricocheted into the creature's head, shattering its mask. The monster dropped to the floor, its spongy black flesh melting. It did not rise. That's it, Boruto thought. The masks. Conjuring a clone, he sent it off to inform the Uzumaki. You had to destroy the beast's mask to put them down for good. Boruto himself took off and ran towards Kohaku, who by the looks of things had figured out the same. The creature with the fox mask lay in a puddle of black goop, while he did battle with the creature with the fish mask. Boruto saw the masked beast unleash lances of highly pressurized wind at Kohaku. He began to weave hand seals as he flanked the creature, intending to strike it from behind. Kohaku saw him coming, and began to weave his own. He unleashed a wave of water, high in volume but weak in pressure, thoroughly submerging the masked creature in much of the surrounding land. Boruto leapt high. Lightning release. Thunderbolt. 2 arcs of lightning hissed through the air, making contact with the water Kohaku had created. The monster gave a high-pitched, furious, and pained scream as its body was racked with electricity. Eventually, the voltage proved to be too much, and its mask shattered. The beast fell, never to rise. Boruto landed in a small, dry patch of land that the water had not reached, being careful not to step in any of the still sparkling water. Wheezing, he gasped for breath. He had never experienced such levels of chakra exhaustion as he did at that moment. Using such powerful ninjutsu in such a short period of time had all but drained him. Good job, kid, Kohaku yelled from the small outcropping on the rock he had left for safety. An explosion of light and heat drew their attention. They turned and watched as the Uzumaki incinerated the final masked beast, turning it in the mask to ash. She hadn't even broken a sweat, and her clothes were untarnished. The creature hadn't even managed to touch her. Pillars of muddy earth erupted in front of Boruto, making a makeshift pathway back towards the house of the first Uzumaki. Boruto saw Kohaku give him a thankful, appreciative nod. He jumped forward, easily avoiding the electrified water with Kohaku's jutsu. Report, the Uzumaki commanded. The moment the both of them reached the house, Boruto noticed there was another ninja making his way towards them. No civilian casualties, but Jun gave his life to make it so, sir, Kohaku informed his grandmother grimly. The Uzumaki nodded gravely before turning to Boruto. He swallowed weakly. 2 of the workers, he said lamely, hanging his head, unable to put their deaths into words. The Uzumaki placed a reassuring hand on his shoulders. You did well, Boruto. You defended our people at great personal risk, and managed to defeat 2 of these masked beasts on your own. Many more of our people would have died had you not been there, she assured him. Boruto felt only slightly better about the situation. He nodded and the Uzumaki removed her hand. Turning, she made her way back into the house to examine the seal. Boruto and Kohaku followed her. I should have known better, she thought aloud. The first would have realized there was no saving our village. He placed his seal as a trap, designed to kill any who would search for the Uzumaki clan secrets. There was no way he could have known, grandmother. The ground began to rumble, causing the ruins around them to collapse. Several workers and villagers began to scream in panic, scattering. Some of the hardened, grizzled men that had guarded Boruto, however, stood their ground. The floorboards of the first house began to groan and bend upwards. Boruto, Kohaku, and the Uzumaki leapt from the house mere moments before the boards exploded into splinters. As the dust cleared, a great masked beast, far larger and stronger than the ones that they had just defeated, loomed over the ruins of old Hidden Eddy. Boruto felt his jaw unhinge at the sheer size of the creature. Easily 30 feet in height, it had no head or neck, just one large solid body with 2 muscular legs and 4 great arms. Embedded in its body were 5 masks, 4 porcelain men, all grinning or frowning with bared fangs and wild eyes, and in center an ancient wooden mask with no mouth, and eyes that were painted black with a circle on his forehead. Everyone could tell that this creature was far stronger than the previous one. What's the plan? Kohaku yelled, pulling out a kunai for all the good it would do him. Destroy the masks, of course, Boruto yelled, slipping to a gentle fist stance. He was too low on chakra to use more than 1 or 2 more jutsu. He could only hope that a gentle fist strike would shatter the mask. The masked beast moved 2 of its arms in front of it, lacing its fingers together almost as if in prayer. It was so out of place that only the Uzumaki recognized it as the snake seal. Boruto and Kohaku leapt forward to do battle with their final foe. They both went still in solemn fear as the giant spoke. Wood release. Cutting spears, it rasped. Its body bubbled, raining down spears of wood in Boruto and Kohaku. They stumbled backwards, with Kohaku kneeling and slamming both palms to the ground. An earthen wall erupted between them and the oncoming spears of wood. The spears pierced the wall, the wooden tips of the projectiles coming out the other side. They were stopped, but only just. "Get back, you fools," the Uzukage commanded. Boruto and Kohaku were all too happy to obey as more wooden spears rained down upon them. As they retreated, an arc of lightning tore through the earthen wall they were hiding behind, incinerating the spot they had been standing at mere moments earlier. The Uzukage covered their retreat with a massive fireball that engulfed the sky. One of the masks unleashed a wave of water from its open maw, overwhelming and extinguishing her fire. Even as the water continued to spew, another mask opened its maw, lightning arsing between its fangs. It rushed forth with an audible, thunderous crack, striking the water. Boruto, Kohaku, and the Uzukage jumped, landing atop the ruined houses that were still standing. "Wood release, tree bind burial," the wooden mask rasped. Great writhing trunks of wood erupted all around them, taking in the water released by the other mask to fuel its growth. "How the hell can this thing use wood release?" Boruto yelled. No one had the wood release bloodline. It was extinct. For this thing to have it was impossible. The tree closest to Boruto opened up, seeking to ensnare him. Lightning release, false darkness. A lance of white-hot lightning shot from the tips of Boruto's fingertips, cutting through and felling the tree in one motion. He collapsed to his knees, empty with exhaustion. His chest heaved with great rasping breaths. He had maybe one jutsu in him. After that, he'd be utterly spent, useless on the battlefield. "It's the wooden mask. The first Uzukage and the first Hokage were good friends in life. It makes sense that they would help safeguard each other's secrets," the Uzukage yelled. Boruto was only barely aware of the flash of fire and stream of water that she and Kohaku were unleashing upon the trees, seeking to crush them alive. The Uzukage looked to her left, Boruto on his knees and clearly exhausted. Her right, her only living family, quickly running himself ragged as he was overwhelmed by the wood release. Grasping her hands in front of her and lacing her fingers, she weaved a seal identical to the masked beast. Secret art, adamantine sealing chains. 2 incorporeal chains forged of pure chakra erupted from the Uzukage's back, slicing through the air, one going left, the other right. They pierced the trees created by the masked beast wood release, causing them to erupt into showers of splinters. Their chakra forcefully snuffed. More chains erupted from the ground at the beast's feet, wrapping around its forearms and both legs, forcefully restraining it and its chakra. It howled in fury, the 4 elemental masks setting their gaze on the old woman. The lightning one opened its maw once more, lightning arsing, though it was not as powerful as it was before. A chain hissed through the air, piercing the mask. The lightning instantly dispersed. Kohaku held his right arm, a chain extending from his palm. His face was scrunched in concentration as beads of sweat ran down his forehead. The chain was pulled painfully taut as the beast struggled against its binds. "Now, Boruto!" Kohaku yelled. Staggering to his feet, Boruto reached deep within himself, tapping into what little chakra he had left. Holding both hands cupped in front of him, he began to channel his chakra. Rotation, power, containment. Rotation, power, containment. In moments, he had a small sphere of whirling, raw chakra that emitted a low whining sound. It was a pitiful comparison to what he had managed during his nightly practices, but it was all he had. Boruto leapt from the safety of his perch. The Uzukage and Kohaku watched him sail through the air. So did the masked beast. He wasn't going to make it. In a last-ditch effort of desperation, Boruto hurled his pitiful excuse of a Rasengan. The orb of spinning chakra sailed through the air in an arc, heading straight for the wooden mask. As it flew, it began to shrink, failing without the constant control provided by Boruto. Boruto's face fell in shame and fear as he plummeted to the ground. The Rasengan puttered out of existence. An explosion of pressure and gusts of wind rocketed the battlefield as the wooden and porcelain mask were shattered. The upper body of the masked beast turned to finely minced meat. It moaned in defeat, collapsing in on itself, coalescing into a large cylinder. Boruto smiled, scoffed, and promptly collapsed into unconsciousness. The Uzukage shuffled over to Boruto, making sure that he still drew breath, before moving to inspect the corpse of the masked beast. Instead of a husk of a body in the splinters of masks, she found a scroll nearby as tall and wide as she was. "Not a trap," the Uzukage whispered in realization. "A test." Drawing up the sleeve of her right arm, she unveiled a tattooed seal. A few hand seals of the masked beast's scroll was stored within her body. Returning to her most prodigious student, the Uzumaki favored his sleeping form with a small smile. Kohaku limped over to his grandmother, a few splinters of wood sticking from his left leg. "What a kid," Kohaku commented. "What a kid indeed," the Uzumaki agreed. She foresaw great things in the future of Boruto Uzumaki.